Ladies and gentlemen, there are moments in life when the weight on your shoulders feels heavier than your strength can carry. There are nights when your mind refuses to rest, when fear whispers that things will never change, when uncertainty keeps you awake long after midnight. You smile in front of people, but deep inside, you are tired. Tired of worrying. Tired of trying to control everything. Tired of wondering how it will all work out. And maybe today you came here carrying silent battles nobody else can see. But hear this clearly. You do not have to live trapped in fear over what God has already begun to handle. So many people spend their lives stressing over doors that have not even opened yet. They worry about tomorrow while missing the strength available today. They try to solve problems that only God has the power to fix. But there comes a moment when you must stop carrying what was never yours to carry. There comes a moment when you must trust that while you are waiting, God is working. Even now, behind the scenes, things are moving in your favor that you cannot yet see. You may think nothing is happening because the answer has not arrived yet. But just because you could. Cannot see movement does not mean heaven is silent. Seeds grow underground long before they ever break through the surface. In the same way, God often works in hidden places before the breakthrough becomes visible. Some of you are stressing over finances. You do not know how the bills will be paid. Some are stressing over family problems, relationships, health, or unanswered prayers. You keep replaying situations in your mind, trying to figure out every detail. But anxiety has never created peace. Fear has never produced solutions. Worry only drains the strength you need for today. And the truth is this. If God has carried you through every difficult season before, He will carry you again. Think about all the times you believed it was over, yet somehow you survived. Think about every closed door that later protected you. Think about every painful delay that eventually made sense. There were seasons when you thought God had forgotten you, but later you realized He was preparing you. What felt like rejection was actually protection. What felt like delay was divine timing. You may not understand your current season right now, but understanding is not required for trust. Faith does. Mean you have all the answers. Faith means you continue believing even when the answers have not arrived yet. It means you choose peace while the storm is still raging. It means you refuse to let fear become louder than God's promises. There are battles you cannot win by stressing. Some things only change through surrender. When you surrender your fear to God, something powerful happens inside you. Your heart becomes lighter. Your mind becomes calmer. Your spirit becomes stronger. Not because the problem instantly disappears, but because you finally realize you are not fighting alone. God never asked you to control the future. He asked you to trust Him with it. Many people are exhausted because they are trying to carry tomorrow before tomorrow even comes. They are mentally living in problems that have not happened yet. But grace comes one day at a time. Strength comes one day at a time. God gives you what you need for the moment you are in. Do not waste today worrying about a future that God already sees clearly. The enemy wants you overwhelmed because stress weakens your vision. Stress steals your joy. Stress convinces you that God is absent. But fear is a liar. Just be. Because life feels uncertain does not mean God has lost control. He is still directing your steps. He is still opening doors. He is still making a way where there seems to be none. Sometimes God allows situations that force you to stop depending on yourself so you can learn to depend fully on Him. Because as long as you believe you can control everything, you will struggle to fully trust Him. And maybe that is where you are today. Maybe you have reached the end of your own strength. Maybe you have cried in secret and asked God, "Where are you?" But let this encourage your heart. God is often doing His greatest work in seasons when you see the least. The silence does not mean abandonment. The waiting does not mean denial. The delay does not mean defeat. God is preparing something bigger than what you can currently imagine. There are blessings being arranged that you cannot yet see. There are opportunities moving toward you. There are prayers already being answered in ways you do not understand yet. God is aligning people, timing, favor, and provision at the exact moment it is needed. But if you spend every day consumed by stress, you will miss the peace available to you right now. Peace is not the absence of problems. Peace is the confidence that God remains in control despite the problems. Anyone can panic when life becomes difficult. But there is strength in the person who stays steady during uncertainty. There is power in the person who chooses faith over fear. When everyone else is falling apart, you can stand firm knowing that your life is held in God's hands. You do not have to know how everything will work out. You only need to know who holds your future. Sometimes God calms the storm. Other times he calms his child while the storm continues. And often the greatest miracle is not the situation changing immediately, but the transformation happening inside you while you wait. Your current struggle is not the end of your story. The pain you feel today is developing strength for tomorrow. The pressure is building endurance. The waiting is teaching trust. And one day, you will look back and realize that the season that nearly broke you actually became the season that built you. So stop tormenting yourself over things beyond your control. Stop replaying worst-case scenarios in your mind. Stop believing that everything depends on you. Some doors will only open when you finally release your grip and trust God completely. Rest in the fact that God is already ahead of you. Before you arrived in this day, he was already there. Before the problem appeared, he already had the solution. Before the tears fell, he already knew how he would comfort you. Nothing catches God by surprise. And maybe right now you cannot see the full picture, but one day you will understand why God allowed certain things to happen. One day the confusion will turn into clarity. One day the pain will turn into purpose. One day the struggle will become part of the testimony that inspires others not to give up. Until then, keep walking by faith. Keep praying even when answers feel delayed. Keep believing even when circumstances look impossible. Keep trusting even when emotions try to convince you otherwise. Because the same God who carried you before is carrying you now, and he is already working everything out in ways greater than you can imagine. There are so many people today carrying burdens they were never meant to carry. Every morning they wake up already exhausted because their minds are filled with fear, uncertainty, and pressure about things they cannot control. They spend hours worrying about tomorrow, replaying painful situations, imagining worst-case scenarios, and trying to solve every problem in their own strength. But stress has a way of draining your peace, little by little, until you no longer enjoy life the way God intended. It steals your sleep, weakens your faith, and fills your heart with fear. That is why one of the greatest lessons a person can learn is to stop stressing and start trusting God completely. Trusting God does not mean your life becomes perfect overnight. It does not mean problems disappear immediately or every prayer is answered instantly. Trusting God means believing that even when things look uncertain, he is still in control. It means understanding that God can see what you cannot see. While you only see the present moment, God sees the entire picture. He already knows how every situation will unfold long before you ever face it. Many times people panic because they think they must figure everything out by themselves. They feel responsible for controlling every outcome. But the truth is, there are some battles too big for human strength. There are situations where no amount of worry can create an answer. Fear cannot open doors. Anxiety cannot change the future. Stress cannot add peace to your life. In fact, the more you worry, the more exhausted and discouraged you become. God never intended for his children to live trapped in constant fear. He wants people to rest in the confidence that he is already working behind the scenes. Even when you cannot feel his presence, he is still guiding your steps. Even when life seems delayed, he is still preparing the right timing. Some of the greatest blessings in life happen quietly before they become visible. Just like a seed grows underground before anyone can see it, God often works in hidden ways before the breakthrough appears. There are moments when people pray for immediate answers, but instead they enter seasons of waiting. And waiting can feel uncomfortable because human nature wants instant results. But sometimes God uses waiting seasons to strengthen faith and build character. During those moments, he teaches you to depend on him instead of depending only on your own understanding. Think about all the times in your life when you believed things would never improve, yet somehow God made a way. There were seasons through. It looked impossible, but you survived them. There were doors that closed only for better opportunities to appear later. At the time, it may have felt painful and confusing, but later you realized God was protecting and redirecting you. That is why trust is so powerful. Trust allows you to remain calm even when you do not have all the answers. It gives you strength during uncertain moments. It reminds you that God's plans are greater than temporary setbacks. Faith says, I may not understand everything happening right now, but I believe God is still working for my good. So many people lose their peace because they constantly focus on what could go wrong instead of remembering who God is. Fear becomes louder than faith. Problems become bigger than promises. But when you truly trust God, your perspective begins to change. Instead of living in panic, you begin to walk in peace. Instead of being controlled by fear, you begin to rest in confidence. This does not mean you stop caring about your responsibilities. It means you stop allowing worry to control your heart. You continue praying, believing, and moving forward, but you no longer carry the crushing weight of fear every single day. You understand that God is fighting battles you cannot even see. Sometimes God will calm the storm around you, and other times He will calm your heart while the storm continues. In both situations, His presence remains with you. The peace of God is powerful because it does not depend on circumstances being perfect. It exists even during difficult seasons. There is freedom that comes when you finally surrender your fears to God. The moment you stop trying to control everything, your soul begins to breathe again. Your heart becomes lighter because you realize your future is not resting in human hands. It is resting in the hands of a faithful God who has never failed you before. One of the hardest things for people to accept is that God often works in silence. Human nature wants immediate answers, visible signs, and quick solutions. People want to know exactly when things will change, how the breakthrough will come, and why the delay is taking so long. But God does some of His greatest work during seasons when nothing seems to be happening. Silence does not mean He is absent. Waiting does not mean He has forgotten you. In many cases, God is preparing blessings in ways you can't, not yet understand. There are seasons in life when prayers seem unanswered. You pray for healing, but the pain continues. You pray for direction, but the future still feels uncertain. You pray for open doors, but opportunities seem delayed. During those moments, it becomes easy to feel discouraged. Doubt begins to whisper that maybe God is not listening. Fear tells you nothing will ever change. But faith reminds you that God is still working even when you cannot see movement. A seed buried underground looks lifeless from the outside, but beneath the surface, growth is taking place. Roots are forming quietly before anything becomes visible. In the same way, God often develops things in hidden places before the results appear publicly. What looks like delay to you may actually be preparation. God knows the right timing for everything in your life. Many people want the blessing without the process, but preparation matters. Sometimes, if God gave you everything immediately, you would not yet be ready to handle it. Waiting seasons strengthen your character, deepen your faith, and teach you to depend on Him. During difficult moments, God shapes your heart in ways comfort never could. Think about how many times in life you later understood why God said no to certain things. At first it felt painful and disappointing, but eventually you realized that closed doors protected you from wrong relationships, wrong opportunities, or wrong timing. God sees dangers in details you cannot see. He knows what will help you grow and what could destroy your peace. That is why you cannot judge your future based only on your current circumstances. Just because life feels difficult today does not mean your story will end in defeat. Some of the greatest testimonies come from people who survived seasons they thought would break them. What felt like silence eventually became evidence that God was working all along. Waiting seasons are not wasted seasons. They are often the places where faith becomes stronger. Anyone can trust God when everything is going well. But true faith is built when life becomes uncertain and you continue believing anyway. It is easy to praise God after the breakthrough arrives, but real spiritual growth happens when you still trust Him before anything changes. There are moments when you may feel forgotten because your progress seems slower than others. You watch other people move ahead while your prayers still seem delayed. But comparison is dangerous because God's timing for your life is different from everyone else's. Just because someone else received their answer sooner does not mean God loves you less. Every person's journey is unique. Sometimes God delays blessings because He is aligning the right people, opportunities, and circumstances together. If things happen too early, certain pieces would still be missing. What feels slow to you may actually be perfect timing in God's plan. He understands what needs to happen behind the scenes before the full blessing can appear. There are also moments when God allows silence because He wants you to grow closer to Him instead of depending only on visible signs. In silence, your faith is tested. In silence, your trust matures. In silence, you learn that God's presence is not dependent on emotions or circumstances. The truth is, some of the strongest people are created in waiting seasons. Patience develops endurance. Struggles develop wisdom. Delays develop humility. And through it all, God continues shaping you into the person you are meant to become. You may not understand your coup, rain season today, but one day you will look back and realize that God was protecting, preparing, and strengthening you the entire time. What once felt confusing will eventually make sense. The tears, the waiting, the uncertainty, and the silence will all become part of a testimony that proves God never abandoned you for a single moment. One of the greatest struggles people face is the desire to control everything around them. Human nature wants certainty, predictable outcomes, and immediate solutions. People want to know how every problem will end, when every prayer will be answered, and why certain hardships are happening. But the more a person tries to control every situation, the more exhausted they become. Fear grows stronger, peace disappears, and stress begins to take over the mind and heart. That is why surrendering fear and walking by faith is one of the most powerful decisions a person can make. Surrender does not mean giving up on life. It does not mean becoming weak or passive. Surrender means releasing the heavy burden of trying to carry everything alone. It means trusting that God is greater than the problems you face. Many people are emotionally tired because they spend every day fighting battles in their minds that God never asked them to fight by themselves. Fear has a way of convincing people that they are alone. It tells them that if they do not figure everything out immediately, life will fall apart. Fear whispers worst-case scenarios over and over until anxiety becomes stronger than faith. But fear is not from God. Fear steals peace, drains strength, and keeps people trapped in worry about things that may never even happen. Faith works differently. Faith allows you to keep moving forward even when you cannot see the full picture. It gives you confidence during uncertain moments. Faith says, I do not understand everything happening right now, but I believe God is still leading me. Walking by faith means trusting God's direction even when the road ahead seems unclear. There are moments in life when situations become too heavy for human strength alone. Financial pressure, heartbreak, disappointment, sickness, betrayal, and uncertainty can leave a person feeling overwhelmed. During those times, many people try to hold everything together on their own. They hide their pain, overthink every problem, and slowly become emotionally exhausted. Dead? But God never intended for His children to carry that weight alone. Surrender begins when you finally admit that you cannot control everything. It begins when you stop trying to force every outcome and start placing your trust fully in God's hands. Some doors only open after surrender. Some breakthroughs only happen after you release fear and choose faith. The truth is, peace does not come from having all the answers. Peace comes from knowing that God already knows the answers. You may not understand why certain things are happening today, but God sees beyond the current moment. He understands the future in ways you cannot. When you surrender your fears to Him, You stop depending only on your limited understanding and begin depending on His wisdom instead. Walking by faith does not mean you will never experience fear. Even strong people face moments of doubt and uncertainty. The difference is that faith refuses to stay controlled by fear. Faith chooses trust even during difficult seasons. It continues praying even when answers feel delayed. It keeps believing even when circumstances seem impossible. There are people who spend years trapped in anxiety because they are not yet trying to predict and control the future. But tomorrow is not in human hands. God already stands in your future before you ever arrive there. Nothing surprises Him. Nothing catches Him unprepared. Every challenge you face is already known by Him. That is why surrender brings freedom. When you finally release your fears to God, your soul begins to rest. You no longer feel pressure to carry the entire weight of life on your shoulders. Instead of being consumed by worry, you begin to experience peace even in uncertain situations. Sometimes the miracle is not the immediate removal of the storm. Sometimes the miracle is the strength God gives you while walking through it. There are moments when God changes the situation, and there are moments when He changes you during the situation. In both cases, He remains faithful. Faith also requires patience. Many people want instant results, but spiritual growth often happens slowly. Trust develops over time. The more you see God carry you through difficult seasons, the stronger your faith becomes. Every past victory becomes evidence that God will remain faithful again. One day you will look back and realize that the situations you fear, most, were the very places where your faith became stronger. The struggles that once made you cry eventually taught you how to trust God more deeply. The pressure that almost broke you became the reason you discovered strength you never knew you had. There are seasons in life when people become so focused on their problems that they completely lose sight of hope. Every challenge begins to feel permanent. Every delay feels like failure. Every setback feels like proof that nothing will ever improve. But one of the most important truths a person can learn is that difficult seasons do not last forever. God has a way of turning pain into purpose, struggles into strength, and broken moments into testimonies of His faithfulness. Many people believe that if they are facing hardships, then something must be wrong with their life. But some of the strongest people are not those who avoided storms. They are the ones who walked through storms and still kept their faith alive. Challenges are not always signs that God has abandoned you. Sometimes they are the very places where He is shaping your character and preparing you for greater things ahead. Life has a way of testing people unexpectedly. Why? One moment everything seems stable, and the next moment circumstances begin to change. A relationship falls apart. Financial pressure increases. Opportunities disappear. Health problems arise. Suddenly, fear and uncertainty begin to fill the mind. During those moments, many people ask, "Why is this happening to me?" But often the better question is, what is God teaching me through this season? Pain has the ability to reveal strengths that comfort never could. Difficult moments teach endurance, patience, humility, and faith. They force people to grow in ways they may never have chosen on their own. While nobody enjoys hardship, some of life's greatest lessons are learned during seasons of struggle. There are people today who feel discouraged because they expected life to move faster. They thought they would already have the breakthrough, the success, the peace, or the answer they prayed for. But God's timing is different from human timing. Sometimes the process takes longer because God is preparing you for something bigger than you currently understand. A tree that grows too quickly without deep roots becomes weak during strong storms. In the same way, God often develops development inside a person before elevating them into greater blessings. The waiting season is not punishment, it is preparation. God cares more about who you are becoming than simply giving you temporary comfort. What makes life even harder is when people begin comparing their journey to everyone else around them. They see others succeeding, moving ahead, or receiving blessings, and they begin to wonder if God has forgotten them. But comparison steals joy and blinds people from seeing the unique path God has designed for their own life. Just because someone else's breakthrough arrived earlier does not mean yours is not coming. Every person has a different assignment, a different journey, and a different season of growth. Some blessings require more preparation because the responsibility attached to them is greater. God understands exactly what you need and exactly when you need it. There are moments when disappointment can make people bitter. They begin to lose motivation and hope because things did not happen the way they expected. But even disappointment can become part of God's greater purpose. Some unanswered prayers are actually hidden protection. Some closed doors are preventing future pain. At the moment, it may not make sense, but later you may realize that God was saving you from something you could not yet see. Faith means trusting God even when emotions say otherwise. It means believing His plan is still good even during painful seasons. There will be days when you feel weak, tired, and discouraged, but those are often the moments when God quietly carries you the most. Sometimes people think strength means never feeling emotional or afraid. But true strength is continuing to move forward despite fear. True strength is continuing to pray when answers feel delayed. True strength is refusing to give up when life becomes difficult. God can restore what pain tried to destroy. He can heal wounded hearts, rebuild broken confidence, and open new doors after seasons of disappointment. No struggle is wasted when placed in God's hands. Every tear, every delay, and every difficult moment can eventually become part of a testimony that inspires others to keep believing. The very season that almost caused you to lose hope may later become the season that proves how faithful God truly was all along. Ladies and gentlemen, no matter what you are facing today, remember, erase this truth deep in your heart. God has not abandoned you. The delays, the struggles, the unanswered questions, and the difficult seasons are not the end of your story. Even when life feels uncertain, God is still working behind the scenes in ways you cannot yet see. Every tear you have cried, every sleepless night, every silent prayer, and every moment of fear has been seen by Him. You may feel tired from carrying heavy burdens, but you were never meant to carry them alone. God is asking you to release your fear, surrender your stress, and trust Him completely. Worry cannot change your future, but faith can change the way you walk through your future. Fear will always tell you that things will fall apart, but faith reminds you that God is still in control. There will be seasons when answers are delayed and doors remain closed, but that does not mean God is inactive. Sometimes He is protecting you. Sometimes He is preparing you. Sometimes He is building strength inside you that will be needed for the next chapter of your life. The waiting season is never wasted when God is involved. One day you will look back and realize that the very moments that almost broke you were the TS that built your faith the most. The pain that made you cry taught you how to trust God more deeply. The pressure that made you feel weak revealed strength you never knew you had. And the battles you thought would destroy you became proof that God was carrying you all along. So stop allowing fear to control your mind. Stop replaying worst-case scenarios. Stop believing that everything depends on your own strength. God is already ahead of you. He already knows how this story ends, and His plans for your life are greater than your current struggle. Keep praying. Keep believing. Keep walking by faith. Keep trusting even when you cannot see the full picture. Because at the right time, everything God promised will come together in ways greater than you ever imagined. And always remember, when you place your life in God's hands, stress loses its power and peace begins to fill your soul.